I'm sure you've seen this happen. A company launches a brilliant strategy, a huge, expensive project, and then it just fizzles out. Well, today we're going to dig into why that happens, and more importantly, how to stop it. We're going to look at a pretty simple tool that can separate a strategy built on solid rock from one that's built on, well, sand. And really, this question is the key. It gets right to the heart of why so many good plans just go wrong. I mean, we've all been in those meetings, right? Someone has a fantastic idea, everyone gets excited, but then somewhere along the road, it just loses all its steam. It costs time, money, morale. And the problem, almost always, is right there in the foundation. This brings us to something called the strategy trap. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's this subtle, really dangerous pitfall that can completely derail a great plan before it even has a chance to get going. Now, it always starts with the best of intentions. You know the scene, those high-energy workshops, sticky notes all over the walls, brainstorms that spit out this huge list of gaps. But here's the trap. Those things on the wall, they're not diagnoses. They're aspirations. They're a picture of what everyone wishes the reality was, not a cold, hard look at what it actually is. So, trying to build a multi-million-dollar strategy on these unchecked ideas, it's like building a house on soft sand. These initial gaps could just be wishful thinking, or maybe they fall completely outside of what your team is even supposed to be doing. Or, and this one is tricky, it might be a brilliant idea for 5 years from now. But today, it's just a disastrous distraction. Bottom line, these are just perceptions. They're not confirmed facts. Okay, so if that's the trap, how do you get out of it? How do you turn that sandy foundation into solid rock? Well, the answer is a simple but really, really powerful filter. It's got a formal name, the Gap Analysis Validation Instrument, but you can just think of it as a quality control checkpoint for your big ideas. Like an architect who goes over a blueprint with a fine-tooth comb. The tool doesn't come up with the ideas, but it stress tests them. It makes sure only the most solid, most relevant ones actually make it into the final plan. So what's under the hood here? Let's take a quick look at the mechanics. It's a surprisingly elegant 4-step process, and it's designed for one thing and one thing only: clarity. It's basically a 4-column process. First, you just capture the raw idea from that workshop, that initial spark. Second, you bring in the data, the external signals that tell you what's happening in the real world. Third, and this is the most important part, senior leaders have to apply their judgment and their experience. And then finally, you're left with a validated, leadership-endorsed statement that can actually be a cornerstone of your strategy. And here is the most elegant part of the whole thing. That big, critical senior judgment phase, it all boils down to answering just 3 simple questions. These are the 3 gatekeeper questions. Number 1, is this gap actually real? Is it backed by evidence, or is it just an assumption we're all making? 2, is now the right time to tackle this, or do we have bigger fish to fry? And 3, is this even our job to fix? Does it fall within our team's mandate? You see how these questions are just ruthless at separating what's real from what's imagined, what's timely from what's premature, and what's our job from what isn't? And what you get out of this whole process is what we call a finalized gap statement. And listen, this isn't just a rephrased idea from the workshop. It is a strategic building block. It's been tested, it's been timed, it's been approved, and it's ready to become a solid piece of your strategy's foundation. Okay, so the theory sounds good, but what does this actually look like in the real world? Let's walk through a quick example. This one comes from a strategic roadmap for the bamboo industry. So here's a direct quote from a workshop. The issue is a lack of a central research facility. And on the surface, that seems like a no-brainer, right? Of course you'd want one of those. But remember, the crucial question isn't, is this a good idea? It's, is this the right idea for us right now? And here is the tool in action. So in column 1, you've got our workshop idea. In column 2, we see that, yep, global data confirms R&D is important for growth, but it's column 3 where the real work happens. Leaders have to make a choice. Is this a now project, a later project, or is it completely outside our scope? And that simple decision point turns a vague wish into a concrete, timed action. Okay, but there's a hidden benefit to this process, something that you might not notice at first. It's this really powerful side effect that comes from just asking those 3 simple questions. See, when someone says, hey, we're missing a research facility, they aren't just pointing out a gap in resources. What they're really saying is we should be the kind of industry that has a world-class research facility. So by asking if it's the right time, leaders aren't just scheduling a project, they're actually validating an entire level of ambition for the organization. Now, why does this matter so much? Because it makes sure your strategy is being built on goals that leadership has consciously and deliberately signed off on. It syncs your ambition with your reality, which stops the organization from biting off way more than it can chew. And it prevents all those unexamined assumptions from quietly steering the ship in the wrong direction. So, when you put all this together, what you end up with is just a fundamentally better blueprint for the future, one that's both ambitious and actually achievable. This process also makes the role of leadership crystal clear. Their job is not to get down in the weeds and rewrite every single statement. Their job is to stay at 30,000 feet. They are the guardians of the strategy. They provide that high-level judgment on timing and on fit, and they protect the organization's precious resources from being wasted on premature ambitions. And I want to be really clear about this. A tool like this is not about stifling creativity. It's about honoring it. It means you're taking the ideas from your team seriously enough to actually put them to the test. It's about channeling all that creative energy, not into a scattergun of wishes, but into a focused, validated strategy that the entire organization can believe in and, more importantly, can actually execute. And that brings us right back to where we started. This filtering process, this is the difference between a wish list and a real strategy. It's what makes sure that every single brick in your plan is solid. So I guess the question to leave you with is this: is your strategy built on rock or on sand? Because the answer to that question, well, it could change everything.